Portugal may not be Ukraine's most prominent ally, but it might be just the most cost-effective one. It sent a $250 million arsenal to Ukraine, including helicopters, drones, and other military support. That arsenal has since obliterated a whopping $4 billion worth of Russian air defences. In other words, for every dollar Portugal has provided, Russia has suffered $16 in damage. And those are the kinds of numbers that are sure to send Russia's President Vladimir Putin into a fit of frustration and rage, especially now with his country's economy crumbling down around him. As a member of the European Union, Portugal has supported Ukraine in various ways since the war began. In the first 2 years of the war, for example, it sent several Leopard 2A6 main battle tanks to Kyiv, along with M113 armoured personnel carriers and medical variants of the same vehicles. It also provided large amounts of artillery and light ammunition, plus howitzers, boats, drones, communications equipment, electrical generators, medical supplies and clothing. However, Portugal seriously upped the aid ante last year on May 28, 2024. On that day, Portugal and Ukraine signed a bilateral security cooperation agreement, detailing the numerous ways in which Portugal planned to support Ukraine in both resisting Russian aggression and rebuilding itself once the war was over. The agreement was built on 10 core points, as detailed by Daria Czerniawska in his recent in-depth report on Portugal's aid to Ukraine. The report was published by the Stanislav Dinistriansky Center for Law and Politics, an analytical and advocacy platform that aims to provide solutions and long-term strategies to help Ukraine overcome the challenges imposed by Russian aggression. The 10 points are: 1. Providing Ukraine with weapons and military equipment. 2. Cooperation in the defense industrial complex. 3. Using frozen Russian assets to support Ukraine. 4. Education and training of Ukrainian military. 5. Sanctions against Russia and its supporters. 6. Non-military security and civil protection. 7. Demining of Ukrainian territories. 8. Critical infrastructure protection. 9. Humanitarian support and support for the reconstruction of Ukraine. 10. Holding Russia accountable. As the list shows, this is a broad agreement. It's not merely a question of Portugal committing to send some weapons or other aid to Ukraine, but to help the country in a number of key areas, from military equipment to training, sanctions, security, and humanitarian aid. And in the years since that agreement was signed, Portugal has gone above and beyond the call of duty, delivering on its promises and even exceeding expectations in numerous ways. For example, when the agreement was signed, Portugal pledged an impressive €126 million, or around $144 million, for the purchase of weapons and other military equipment for Ukraine in 2024. It went on to surpass that target by a huge margin, contributing an extraordinary €226 million, which is more than $250 million. An initial €100 million came early in 2024, when Portugal committed to a Czech-led initiative to provide Ukraine with hundreds of thousands of artillery shells to replenish and expand its all-important stocks of munitions. Czech President Petr Pavel led the charge, seeking out viable artillery shell supplies outside of Europe that could be purchased and delivered to Ukraine, with a focus on 155mm ammunition. Portugal was eager to assist with the necessary funding. Its defense ministry released a statement at the time, saying, "Given Portugal's commitment to support the defense of sovereignty and the territorial integrity of Ukraine in accordance with internationally recognized borders and in compliance with the United Nations Charter and international law, the Council of Ministers approved today a resolution authorizing expenditure for this purpose up to a maximum amount of €100 million. This already was a generous and valuable commitment from Portugal, as artillery shells are absolutely vital for the defense of Ukraine, and the country was struggling with a shell shortage at the time, opening opportunities for Russia to press its advantage and launch intense assaults along the front lines. Then Portugal went further, It allocated €52 million to the Drone Coalition, an initiative focused on producing various types of drones in Portugal to send to Ukrainian armed forces on demand. By the end of 2024, Portugal had also delivered more than a dozen helicopters to Ukraine, including 6 Ka-32 units and 8 SA-330 Puma helicopters. The Ka-32s are multi-purpose helicopters widely used in firefighting, search and rescue, medical evacuation, cargo transport and more. The Pumas, meanwhile, are French-made utility helicopters used by the likes of the French Army and British Royal Air Force. Equipped with advanced fire control systems, Pumas can launch Exocet anti-ship missiles. They also come with Orb 31 X-band radar systems to detect and identify surface targets and have the ability to strike both surface and submerged targets, making them useful for a range of mission types in various settings and scenarios. Added up, this massive aid package was worth over $250 million, and Portugal isn't stopping there. At a NATO summit in 2024, Portuguese Prime Minister Luís Montenegro announced that his country would repeat its feat in 2025, telling journalists, "This year alone, we estimate that we'll be able to reach a value of support of more than €220 million, which will be repeated next year." As further evidence of Portugal's commitment to the cause, the country has also joined several multinational capability coalitions to strengthen Ukraine's defences, including the Armoured Vehicles Coalition, Aviation Coalition, and Naval Power Coalition. These coalitions involve several nations working together to help Ukraine become stronger on land, in the air and at sea, so it can fend off Russian attacks no matter what form they take. On top of all that, since the war began, Ukraine has forged a strong working relationship with the Portuguese company Tekever. Founded in 2001 by former students of the IST Engineering School at the University of Lisbon, Tekever specializes in unmanned aerial systems, or drones, along with other aerospace, defense and security technologies. It supplies defense products to numerous military and police forces around the world, from the Brazilian Navy to the Portuguese National Republic Guard, the Spanish National Police Corps, and the British Royal Air Force. Even the United States Special Operations Command has conducted exercises with Tekever and shown interest in further cooperation with the company. Tekever has provided Ukraine's armed forces with 2 specific types of reconnaissance drones, the AR-3 and the AR-5. Both of these systems can carry out surveillance and recon missions at sea and on land, with the AR-5 being slightly larger and more advanced. It's able to carry payloads of over 100 pounds or around 50 kilograms, while the AR-3 carries payloads of under 10 pounds or just 4 kilograms. The AR-5 also has a longer flight duration and can stay in the air for periods of up to 20 hours total. These drones have proven invaluable for Ukrainian soldiers. In a video case study published on the Tekever website, a Ukrainian platoon commander named Konstantin, serving with the Black Forest 15th Artillery Recon Brigade, explains how the AR-3 provides critical intelligence for accurate, impactful artillery strikes on high-value Russian targets, including those that the Russians might try to hide far from the front lines. This UAV allows us to remain airborne for extended periods, conducting operations throughout the entire day without the need for return maneuvers or landings. One of the missions that stood out the most to me was when, thanks to this drone, we penetrated deep into enemy-controlled territory and managed to detect an S-400 station, which we successfully targeted with firepower. That was the most spectacular footage I've seen during this war. The entire complex was destroyed with a single strike, more than $1 billion. In addition, Tekever is committed to gathering battlefield data, listening to Ukrainian soldiers' feedback, and making rapid, valuable changes to its drone technology in mere days or even hours to improve its effectiveness in this dynamic and ever-evolving war. As Konstantin explained, because we maintain very close contact with the manufacturer, we continuously provide them with all the feedback we gather from our missions. They listen to our recommendations, analyze the challenges we face on the battlefield, and implement modifications to certain parts of the aircraft. Over the past year, or even longer, we've encountered different types of problems, and while new ones sometimes arise, we always strive to find solutions together. Now, earlier this year, Tekever and Ukraine celebrated a massive milestone. The AR-3 drone platform had surpassed more than 10,000 operational flight hours in Ukraine, helping to support critical intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance missions on the ground and in the air. Tekever has also revealed that it had more than 100 design iterations since launching in Ukraine, with the developers responding to frontline feedback to help the armed forces as much as possible. But here's an even more impressive number: $4 billion. That's how much damage Portugal's Tekever drones have helped Ukraine inflict on Russian military equipment, including not just one but two of Russia's most advanced and expensive air defense systems, the S-400. And the company's incredibly valuable aid has not gone unnoticed. John Ridge, Chief Adaptation Officer at NATO's Innovation Fund, hailed Tekever as one of the most successful drone suppliers to Ukraine, stating, "Their drone surveillance solutions are helping Ukraine counter Russian aggression by constantly innovating to keep up with the pace of the conflict." What's more, Tekever isn't done yet. In fact, it recently took another massive step in upscaling its support for Ukraine. In April of this year, the company announced the creation of a new subsidiary within Ukraine itself, collaborating with the country's Ministry of Strategic Industries to open a network of Ukraine-based facilities for drone maintenance, engineering support, research and development, and drone operator training too. Since these facilities will be situated on Ukrainian territory, they could play a huge role in speeding up drone servicing and getting more operators in key areas close to the front lines, ready to take the skies with AR-3 and AR-5 drones to spot and take out even more high-value Russian targets, dealing millions or even billions in additional damage as the war goes on. Every successful strike carried out with the aid of Portuguese drones can also help to save lives, cripple Russian military infrastructure, and pave the way for Ukraine soldiers to hold on to valuable land or even launch successful counterattacks along the front lines. As such, it's impossible to say just how important these drones have been and continue to be day in and day out. But drones and helicopters aren't all that Portugal is providing. It's also making sure that Ukrainian armed forces personnel are better trained, helping them gain the knowledge and skills they need to survive on the battlefield, use Western weapons as efficiently as possible, and take out Russian targets with ruthless precision. To do all this, Portugal plays its part in the EU's EUMAM mission, which as of mid-2025 has trained over 62,000 Ukrainian soldiers across EU countries, expected to reach 75,000 by the end of the year, preparing them for all kinds of real-world combat conditions. Portugal is also a member of the 11-country coalition of aviation capabilities and uses its own Air Force bases as training centers, where Ukrainian pilots and crews are educated on how to fly and operate F-16 fighter jets. Again, the long-term value of this is immeasurable. Thanks to Portugal's generosity and assistance, Ukraine will soon have more fully trained fighter pilots ready to take to the skies and possibly bring down enemy fighters or participate in attacks on Russian command posts, production plants, oil refineries, or other important targets, further weakening the Kremlin's war machine one strike at a time. Portugal is also playing an active role in turning frozen Russian assets against the Kremlin. It's part of the EU's Extraordinary Revenue Acceleration (ERA) loans initiative. This scheme, launched in 2024, essentially involves taking the profits generated by various frozen Russian assets across Europe and then using that money to support Ukraine, funding the likes of new air defense systems, ammunition supplies, and defense industry investment. It's already been a hugely successful venture, with the first 1.5 billion euros in funds arriving in mid-2024. By May of this year, Ukraine had received 6 billion euros in total through the ERA program, and EU leaders recently committed another 1 billion euros too. In total, the EU has pledged a staggering 35 billion euros in support in 2025, including both ERA loan money and funds from the Ukraine Facility program. Portugal fully backs and participates in these decisions, further cementing its unwavering and steadfast support for Kyiv. The country has also been a reliable backer of massive EU sanctions against Russia. Since mid-2024, for example, the EU has put new sanction packages in place against Moscow, all of which have been wholeheartedly backed by Portugal. The financial measures target Russia's military and energy industries, along with propaganda media outlets and various senior officials and oligarchs who have supported Putin and contributed to war crimes and atrocities, like the bombing of the Okhmagdit hospital in Kyiv, which is the largest children's hospital in the whole of Ukraine, treating tens of thousands of patients per year. Portugal has also actively imposed sanctions and restrictions on countries that continue to aid and invest in Russia, like Iran, which has supplied drones to the Russian army, and North Korea, which has sent soldiers, engineers and construction workers to the country. The likes of China, India, Singapore, the United Arab Emirates and Serbia also make up the list of sanctioned nations. As far as humanitarian aid goes, Portugal has continued to demonstrate remarkable generosity and support. Even before its 2024 security agreement was signed, Portugal had been helping Ukrainian civilians survive. It joined the Grain from Ukraine initiative in 2023, which attempts to minimize the amount of damage done to the global food supply because of Russia's blockades and repeated bombardments of Ukrainian ports. The Portuguese government has contributed €7 million to this noble cause, helping unblock food supply routes to help food flow wherever it's needed in Ukraine and beyond. In 2024, Ukraine also strengthened its partnership with Portugal's Investment and Foreign Trade Agency, or ICEP, which has worked hard to promote and support Ukrainian businesses, attracting foreign investment, developing e-commerce, and essentially bringing more money into Ukraine's economy at a time of major financial strife for the country and its countless companies, great and small. Also in 2024, Portugal participated in the Joint Commission on Economic Cooperation, pledging to expand trade and economic cooperation with Ukraine, while also taking steps to get Portuguese companies more directly involved in the reconstruction of Ukrainian infrastructure. And speaking of reconstruction, Portugal has also been an active player in helping to restore and rebuild schools that have been bombed and blown away by Russia's ruthless airstrikes. Like school number 25 in the city of Zitomir, which was wiped out in a Russian attack back in March of 2022. Portugal also invested €160,000 to fund the creation of two new so-called superhero schools in Chernihiv and Cherkasy in 2024. These schools are specially designed to help children who are in hospital and undergoing long-term inpatient treatment to continue receiving an education. Portugal is also playing a big part in holding Russia accountable for its invasion. Back in the spring of 2023, for example, Portugal contributed €75,000 to the International Criminal Court for the collection of evidence of Russian war crimes in Ukraine. It also deployed one of its own leading experts from the Portuguese Judicial Police to the ICC Prosecutor's Office to assist in that process. Portugal has also joined two big coalitions: the Coalition for the Establishment of a Special Tribunal for the Crime of Aggression against Ukraine and the International Coalition for the Return of Ukrainian Children. The Coalition for the Establishment of a Special Tribunal involves around 40 partner countries, which have been working together over the past couple of years to prepare the necessary documents needed to create the tribunal. In May of this year, those documents were successfully assembled and submitted to the Council of Europe, and in June, Ukraine and the Council signed an agreement to formally establish the Special Tribunal. It will operate in The Hague and start work in 2026, with the power to prosecute up to 30 senior Russian leaders and Belarusian officials too, including Putin himself, as well as the Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko and Russia's Minister of Foreign Affairs Sergei Lavrov. Even if these men refuse to attend, that won't matter, as the tribunal has the power to operate in absentia, so sentences can still be passed even without the accused individuals being present. If convicted, the accused could face lifetime imprisonment. The International Coalition for the Return of Ukrainian Children, meanwhile, has been working tirelessly to find hundreds of Ukrainian children forcefully taken from their homeland and deported by Russia and bring them back home. So far, about 1,300 children have been saved, thanks to the incredible efforts of the collective countries involved. So, despite technically being the furthest EU country away from Ukraine, geographically speaking, Portugal has proven itself to be one of Kyiv's closest and most reliable allies. It's an unsung hero of this war, providing immeasurable support and assistance in all the areas that matter most. From giving Ukraine eyes in the skies with its industry-leading surveillance drones, to training its fighter pilots, rebuilding its schools, feeding its people, strengthening its defences, and investing in its economy, Portugal is leaving no stone unturned. It's doing everything in its power to help the people of Ukraine survive and emerge victorious. And as recent statements from Portugal's Prime Minister and other leading figures prove, it's not showing any signs of stopping anytime soon. With allies like this, Ukraine has a much stronger chance of winning this war. Now, learn more about Ukraine's latest victories in our recent video, detailing how the country's armed forces cleverly baited Russian tanks and armoured vehicles into a veritable death trap in the Donetsk region. Or, if you prefer to see a prime example of the Kremlin's incompetence, check out this video, exploring how Russia has managed to accidentally bomb itself no less than 100 times in 2025 alone. And if you're not already a subscriber, make sure to follow our channel so you can stay in the know and up to date on all major developments from the Russia-Ukraine conflict and other important geopolitical events across the globe.